Big show on the DNVR Broncos podcast after the Broncos made not one, but two big moves on the first day of free agency, signing Hufanga and Greenlaw, and we're going to break it down. And what does this mean for the Broncos defense? Should it be the best defense in the NFL? Is it the best defense in the NFL? We're having that conversation and keeping you up to date with all the free agency moves, and it starts now. Hufanga Kawabunga! We got to start the show with some energy because the Broncos just had a massive first day in free agency, and we're here to break it down on the DNVR Broncos podcast, live from the Toyota Lounge, driven by your local Front Range Toyota stores, and we are the DNVR Broncos podcast, the new three-man set. We got officially rocking and rolling today with Ryan Koenigsberg on my left, Henry Chisholm on my right. You hear behind the camera and Zac Stevens rocking and rolling with you today. Fellas, how we doing after a big 24 hours of free agency for the Broncos?
Amazing. I picked a great day to come back to the B-Day.
Yes, you did. Maybe it's because of you.
It could be. I was also watching the Avs game last night. Like I said, they're winning the cup. Yep. And I was like, oh, I'm like Eric Johnson.
Yeah.
Just the old wily vet came back to, make sure everything's right in the locker room.
Maybe a little bit bigger role.
I would hope so.
Are you willing to do anything? Anything asked, just like EJ?
Maybe I'm like Gabe Landeskog, but I'm just a little ahead of schedule for him.
There you go.
Hopefully a lot of ahead of schedule.
Well, hopefully he comes back soon.
Yeah,
so that I'm
we're only a few weeks away.
We're only a few weeks away.
Yep.
You've been saying that for years
now? No.
Okay,
We've known all year that he can't come back until the playoffs for salary cap reasons.
Okay.
And now here we are, a few weeks away.
Okay,
Fingers crossed.
Good. I like that. Fingers crossed. And fellas, how are we feeling about these two signings? And of course, yesterday, we talked about all these signings. We went live for 4 hours yesterday, and so many of you tuned in with us. We really appreciate that. But after a night of rest, after processing the Talanoa Hufanga signing and the Dre Greenlaw signing, how are we feeling about them today, Henry?
Personally, did not get a lot of rest. I published that film room at like 1:30, and then when you finish writing, you're still kind of buzzing, It's hard to just lay down and go to bed. But I did watch a lot of football yesterday. And I'll say I'm really excited about both these moves. Way more excited about Hufanga going back and watching both, though, because he's the one where you look at and say, I knew that he could do all the things that he's known for, whether it's he picks off the screen against the Rams and takes it for a touchdown. You're like, wow, crazy instincts. You see him make the 3 tackles where he just blitzes off the edge against the Broncos and blows up a run in the backfield. And you're like, okay, I know that's the kind of player he is. But then you go watch what he does in the deep middle of the field or split and reading things and crashing down and making plays. A pick against Justin Fields where he's trying to throw this dig against cover 3, and Fields makes the right read. He just puts the ball right between the linebackers. Ufanga's responsible for the flat, runs all the way across because he knows what's coming and picks it off. And you're just like, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. So that's where I go back and watch and say, the speed isn't great. He got burned a couple times because he wasn't conservative enough in man coverage, but that's not really his game. So I watch that and just say, oh my goodness, he can do anything.
And really quick, speaking of Henry's film rooms, if you want to watch and see everything he broke down, make sure to go to thednvr.com. We've got a DieHard sale right now, less than half the price you can get in, and there's no better time for those of you that listen to our show, watch our show, because this is all about free agency this week. And this is why it's a free agency frenzy sale to get you in for $36 and not only get you all of the content on our website, including Henry's articles, the tracker that we've got going on to keep you up to date, but it also gets you a free t-shirt, which for $36, you pretty much get the t-shirt and then everything else for free, or you get everything else for free, or you pay for everything else and you get the t-shirt for free. The deal is insane. So scan the QR code or click the link in our description to sign up and join us now. And that also is the best way to support us. So we really appreciate everyone.
the more I think about this, the more I just feel, first of all, football obviously is not played on paper. It's played on grass.
Yes.
But
Or turf, yeah.
Sometimes turf.
Unfortunately.
Which maybe paper could be a product of.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyways.
Turf is plastic.
Well, paper could be involved.
In plastic?
Might be safer to play on paper.
Shredded up paper,
Yeah.
That would be better, yeah.
You never know. Maybe underneath it.
That's true.
To
That's
soften the ground.
Like when you have like a hamster or something.
Exactly.
Wow. Exactly. Yeah.
That's right where my brain was.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So football is played on paper.
If it is, the Broncos are in great shape because they have the best defense in the NFL on paper. Especially with the way the Eagles' defense has been kind of dismantled over the last couple days. They obviously still have an incredible front four. They kept Zach Bond. They have 2 young, amazing corners. Like, they're still in the mix. But on paper, which also means when healthy, I think the Broncos have the best defense in the NFL. And that's just so exciting to think about. You talked a lot about Hufanga. Dre Greenlaw is a do-it-all linebacker. Truly. Some people will tell you their favorite part about him is that he sets the tone and that he lays big hits and that he makes teams think twice about coming over the middle. Other people tell you the best part about him is that he can go out and cover tight ends and make plays in coverage. There's only a couple guys in the entire NFL who people talk about like that. Now, he's always had the luxury of playing next to arguably the best linebacker in the NFL. So that's going to be interesting to follow how he does kind of out on his own. But in terms of a skill set, he's right up there with any linebacker in the NFL in terms of the things he's capable of doing when he's healthy.
You know who else it was a bad day for in terms of defenses yesterday? You mentioned how it was a bad day for the Eagles. It was a bad day for the San Francisco 49ers because the Broncos, in a 24-hour period, blocked DJ Jones from going to San Francisco. There were many reports that the 49ers wanted him back. They stole Greenlaw. They stole Hufanga. And just getting a vibe online, didn't do any digging on this, but the vibe online was that San Francisco, the 49ers, they'd been prepared to move on from Hufanga. But, man, they wanted Dre Greenlaw back because with Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, it's the best inside linebacker duo in the NFL by far, hands down. And, yes, a big reason of that is because Fred Warner's the best inside linebacker in the NFL, but also Dre Greenlaw is the best number 2 linebacker in the NFL with the upside of being a really, really good number 1. And Ryan, I'm not actually concerned with Dre Greenlaw not being next to Fred Warner because 2 reasons. One, Alex Singleton's a damn good linebacker as well. So it's not like he has a massive drop off and is playing with the backup linebacker and has to take a big step up. Alex Singleton and him are going to be great. But another thing is the 49ers have done such a good job over the years of using pretty much every first-round pick they have on defensive linemen. So they put a really good defensive line in front of him, and that helps any linebacker. He's stepping into a situation where the Broncos have just as good of a defensive line and really a front 5 in front of him with Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito, Zach Allen, Jonathan Franklin Myers, and DJ Jones there. So he's not going to have to put the world on his shoulders here. He's surrounded by great talent, just like he was in San Francisco. Now, he hasn't played
better secondary.
Yeah, better secondary. So the talent around him is just as good. I'm so stoked about both of these guys because they're both playmakers. And that is something that is just going to elevate this defense. We talked about it last year, how the Broncos defense was incredible last year, top 3. And maybe a difference between last year's defense and the Super Bowl 50 defense was just the big opportune plays that they needed. And the Broncos defense last year still had a lot of them. But man, Hufanga and Greenlaw bring that to this team.
Yeah, and so the reason I was just a little bit disappointed in Greenlaw, and again, just because standards are so high, because you expect him to come in and be a Pro Bowl type linebacker, he was just a little bit passive when he's taking on blocks. And so there's a lot of the time where, and it's actually, I went back and read Lance Zierlein's scouting report. It's kind of the same thing where it says like, look small, play small, rare to trigger downhill and attack the backfield, too much hesitation stepping into run fits. And obviously like he's improved in all that stuff and he doesn't look like the 7th round draft pick that he was projected to be. But there is still some of that where there's a lot of like waiting for the offensive lineman to come to him and then try to like make a quick little move around him instead of just taking on the block, which is something that, Todd Davis has talked about a lot on the show. Where it's like Cody Barton kind of struggled in that same way, where it isn't so much downhill, it's more that like sideline to sideline. But again, like when you have that defensive line in front of him where you should be getting so much penetration, you can get by with one spot where it's like maybe a little bit more conservative. And we talked about this a little bit on the breaking podcast yesterday, but similar to Singleton too. Those are both guys where it's like the chase and tackle types who go sideline to sideline. And I've always thought that like pairing more of the thumper, like hit the gap, like knock guys backward makes more sense. But at the same time, like I was against signing Nick Bolton because like a 2-down linebacker for that role or for that money just seems like a bit much. So it's one of those where you're never going to find like the perfect player, but that was the one thing where I looked and was like, I just thought like the physicality in the run game where you're hitting running backs or like triggering down to hit a receiver across the middle, all that's there. You just need it a little bit more in the running game, and all of a sudden it could really open up.
I'm going to say, Henry, though, like I know you're trying to bring like concerns up, but for me, everything you said just sells me on it even more in today's NFL. Especially with the Broncos that have a great defensive line, very stout against the run. What were they, number 2 in the NFL last year against the run? Give me the 2 sideline to sideline inside linebackers instead of a thumper and one other guy. Give me both of those. So I love that, and especially since you're bringing DJ Jones back. Let's say if you didn't bring DJ back, then maybe the need for more of a thumper would be there, but you don't need that. So honestly, when you bring up those concerns, if I'm Vance Joseph, I actually love this because then, man, it just gives you that versatility. You don't have to say, okay, Alex Singleton has to be over this tight end or something like that. You can just play exactly how you want. Don't tip your hands anywhere.
And you bring Hufanga into the box a little bit more. Let him play more of that downhill type of role.
Yeah, of course. And what I love about Hufanga,
I was just going to say, you want to know who does not hesitate at all going towards the ball carrier is Hufanga.
And I know that is something that is so key for Sean Payton in a safety, is a guy that's not afraid to be the first one there and the first one to make a tackle. And sometimes safeties are not like that. Sometimes, ball hawk safeties. When you think of a ball hawk safety, you think of a guy that probably doesn't hit very much. That is so key for Sean. So I'm not surprised that they went after Hufanga for that.
I only wish that I knew a Broncos coach in the linebackers room or something that could tell me what they feel about Dre Greenlaw.
Also, do you have any information?
No, I don't know anyone.
Speaking of Todd Davis, shout out to Todd, shout out to Vance. Did they have fantastic days yesterday? In fact, I don't know if, and this is okay to share even if it wasn't on the air, but last week when Todd was with us, he said something along the lines of like, man, I hope they get Dre Greenlaw or Nick Bolton or one of these top guys, because then I'm not going to have to do much coaching here. And sure enough, there's not much coaching that needs to be done, not just with the inside linebackers, but for the entire defense. Because, Ryan, you brought it up that this is the best defense in the NFL. I want to run some names by you.
Really quick. Obviously joking about that, but I also don't want to, bother Todd. It was first week on the job, so
also I had some friends, some colleagues reach out yesterday, and they're like, interesting that you're breaking news the first day on Todd's on the job. And I'm like, you really think that I would go to him the first day on the job for him? Like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, for sure. And he would not.
No.
You would have got ghosted.
He made that very clear.
He did make it very clear. Like, I'm not going to be talking to you guys as much, at least at the start. But someone that I do want to talk about and talk to is our friends over at Mando. And this is a conversation that we all need to have with each other. Let's make it open and honest. You need to smell good. Yes. Whether it's in your parts, your pits, your grundles, your balls, your legs, everywhere. Men need to smell good, and Mando is there for you. It's a men's deodorant brand that's hyper-focused on keeping every aspect of a man's body smelling fresh and clean from head to toe. Their scents are geared towards men with options like bourbon leather, clover woods, Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport. I'd probably go for the Mount Fuji myself over at, actually, I have gone for the Mount Fuji, and I love it. Mando is there for you. It's 100. It is great for any gifts for maybe your father, maybe for yourself. Ask for that. We've got birthdays coming up, so if you want Mando, you can get in on it, and they are going to give you a deal. When you go to shopmando.com, that's shopmando.com. Use the code DNVR, and when you do, you can get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. And that starter pack comes with solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant, and free shipping. So that's over 40% off your starter pack when you use that code DNVR over at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. And please support our show by using that code DNVR.
Also, if you're looking for a roof, Red Hawk Roofing is the place to go. I'm not sure how often you have to have your roof replaced. Does anybody know?
None of us.
When it's
homeowner.
Broken.
Okay, so if your roof is broken, then you should go to Red Hawk Roofing because they are the best in the business. It's also good to get ahead of some of these sorts of things. They'll give you a free, no-obligation roof and property inspection, free in-depth photo report for all their inspections, and they've built a great reputation in the community, especially in the sports community. But they've got long-lasting relationships. They use quality materials. They've got decades of experience. They have a quick response time, and they also are Colorado's best estimators and contractors. They're big supporters of DNVR, so we'd really like it if you guys would support them as well. And remember that you can't always see how bad the damage to your roof is from the ground. So if supporting your local teams is important to you, then make sure you're also supporting local businesses like Red Hawk Roofing. If you're looking for a new roof over your home or business, be sure to check out Red Hawk Roofing at redhawkroofing.com or call 720-771-8921 and tell them DNVR sent you.
So, Ryan, and shout out to our Toyota chat for everyone tuning in with us on this busy time. There's a lot of places to get your Broncos news, and we appreciate that you rock and roll with us because we truly believe we're the best. Whether it's online over at DNVR.com, make sure to sign up for our Die Hard sale right now. Whether it's on the podcast, on a show, we've got it both on YouTube, on Twitter. We're streaming over at DNVR.com. We might be on your TV as well. And then, of course, anywhere you get podcasts and social media, check us out, DNVR_Broncos on Twitter. Of course, DNVR Sports on Instagram as well.
Also, make sure you hit us with that thumbs up because we're trying to keep a streak going.
Oh.
Yesterday, 3 consecutive 10,000 view shows on YouTube.
Yes.
Let's go.
Got to keep that rolling.
Yeah,
we do.
And a big way you could help is by tuning in and also hitting us with a thumbs up. So, Ryan, you brought up that this is the best. You brought it up yesterday, right after they signed, which one was that? Greenlaw,
yeah.
I believe, to round out those 2 signings. And then one of the things that really sunk in, so I listened to that and I'm like, yeah, they really should be. You had 2 great pieces when you're a top 3 defense already. They should be the best defense in the NFL. And then I thought about the starting 11 here, and maybe you do starting 12 because you throw Jaquan in as a slot corner as well. And guys, I don't see a weakness with any of these, not just positions, with any of the starting 11. You have Pat Surtain as your cornerback 1. Riley Moss is your cornerback 2. Hufanga as one of your safeties. Brandon Jones, Dre Greenlaw, Alex Singleton as your linebackers. Your outside linebackers and pass rushers are Nick Bonito, who was 3rd in the NFL in sacks last year. Jonathan Cooper on the other side. Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, and DJ Jones round out your defensive line. Those are all plus players, at least in my mind. That's insane for one unit of your team to be that stacked from top to bottom.
100%. And it makes you, well, I have a couple questions on it. One, when's the earliest defensive player drafted by the Broncos in this draft?
That's a great question. So the guys that were being projected to the Broncos in the first round on the defensive side were 2 safeties, Malachi Starks and Nick Manwari. No chance, right?
Highly unlikely.
You wouldn't think so. Not unless they actually cut PJ, and even that, that would shock me.
Yeah, you would draft a backup safety in the first round?
I mean, you would say long term, you a lot of 3 safety stuff. If you're really going best player available in this world, you probably you do land Evan Engram.
They did draft Justin Simmons when they had Darian Stewart and TJ Ward.
Third round.
Yes.
But I mean, or Shane Ray when you do sometimes you just wind up taking the best player available because you think he's that good.
Either way,
I say
yes.
0%.
Okay.
Very
Fair.
low chance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So probably not happening in the second round either. I mean, I would say third round is the earliest. And even then, this whole thing might have just been like, let's get the defense lined up and then just get as many darts as we can to throw at the offense.
Yeah, and Sean will get the draft because we said how Vance Joseph and Todd Davis got free agency. Sean's going to get the draft. So and we're looking at third, maybe even fourth round in defense. And then you're thinking, what? Defensive line. I guess you can always go pass rusher, cornerback, inside linebacker. But that's 100% for depth for right now.
Yep. Again, that's what you want. I mean, good teams, like, they have good starting lineups. Like that's kind of the first step of the rebuild is let's build the starting lineup. And then from here, you just keep it going. And you do that by drafting guys, by adding another corner to the mix in case something happens to somebody or just on the off chance that he pops. Same thing at linebacker, defensive line. You just keep throwing guys in and developing that depth so that you don't have to worry in 4 years about how you're going to pay to keep all this together because you've got better options coming in behind. Now, the offense obviously isn't built out to this point. You're still trying to build that, and so you aren't quite in the position of just saying like we're lucky enough just to be drafting depth at every spot, but they're well on their way.
And what's crazy, you talk about developing, Henry. Keno points out in the Toyota chat, Pat Surtain's the only first rounder that the Broncos have on defense, which talk about development, talk about finding gems in the draft, in free agency, and undrafted guys, and making great trades like JFM taking advantage of that. What'd they trade? A 6th round pick for JFM, 5th round pick. It was something like that. Locked him up to a good deal. They get Zach Allen, who was a rising star. They identified him as a guy who then was definitely a rising star. Now he's a stud. They went out and identified DJ Jones a couple years ago. Then he turned in to be even better. So now you give him a raise this year. Brandon Jones was viewed as like a backup safety. He played like 45% of the defensive snaps with the Dolphins before the Broncos signed him. And they said, you're going to be our guy. And turns out he turned in to be the guy. And now this route with the Broncos going with Greenlaw and Hufanga is kind of the final step. And it's a different step than the Broncos have taken with putting this defense together. It's going out and getting studs, getting household names, getting dogs with a little caveat there that they're available because of the injury history. And that is a big concern for Broncos country. I've seen a lot of people concerned about that. Here's something that I don't think we touched on enough yesterday, which also sunk in with me last night about their injury concerns. It's there. We can't cover them up. But the Broncos got the injury discount on both of them. And sometimes in free agency, you don't get that. The Broncos paid Juwan James top money. He was injured every other year, and they still paid him top money. They didn't get an injury discount there.
Should be illegal to say that name out loud.
It really should be. But the Broncos, they're not dealing with those type of guys anymore. They're dealing with hits and studs. And the thing is, Dre Greenlaw, I talked to many people around the league and also with the Broncos. He would have got $20 million this year if he didn't have the injury concerns. They got him for $11 million, almost 50% off. So that should help alleviate some injury worries. They're not paying him top dollar. And then Hufanga, he also would have been the top paid safety in this market. And the safety market is booming as well. He would have been close to $20 million as well. And the key thing with his contract, 3 years up to $45 million. We haven't got the details on Hufanga's contract. We'll probably get that later today. So we'll have more information for you tomorrow. But he's not even getting $15 million here. So I think that should alleviate some of these concerns. Is the Broncos did get an injury discount with both of them.
Absolutely. And I pointed this out yesterday, but I think it bears saying again. One major injury does not make you an injury-prone guy. Now, Hufanga's had some more lingering little things. He had the
wrist last year. Yeah.
But even then, it's like, if you have multiple major injuries, now I'm really worried about, is this a common theme, or is your body just too worn down from multiple big rehabs? Like I said yesterday, I would guess half of the NFL has dealt with a major injury at some point during their career. So it's one of those things that you do never know how they're going to come back, but one feels a lot better than multiple.
And everybody's a free agent for a reason. And the reason for these guys is just that they're injured. For other guys, it's because they aren't very good or because they're old. It's very rare that you just have this guy's an incredible football player. He's just an all-pro every year, and the team he's on is letting him hit free agency. There wasn't one of those this year. So I mean, you kind of have to pick your poison when it comes to free agency and say, well, we're either going to take this guy and say like, hey, he might not be himself anymore because he's old. He might wind up getting hurt. He might not be fast enough to do whatever. He might not be big enough, whatever it may be. And they went the route of a couple guys who've dealt with injuries, and that's why, I mean, you got to pick something when it comes to free agency.
And what makes me feel good about Dre Greenlaw, since we haven't seen him play much since he tore his Achilles, is the 49ers wanted him back. They were in the mix to sign him. So that tells me their medical team that's been around him for his entire rehab for 15 months checked off on him and said he's fine, he can be back. And the other thing is, he has had that full year to rehab. The Broncos aren't going to be rushing him. He's ready to rock and roll. He played a little bit last year as well. So that really eases a lot of my concerns here. And as Henry, you said, there's a reason that these guys are free agents, and I'd rather get damn good football players. So I love where the Broncos are going here, and I just wanted to touch on that injury because I know a lot of people are worried about that. To me, I'm not, because the Broncos are paying for exactly who these guys are.
This is so random, but something that has been bothering me for 2 weeks just like clicked in my head, and it just feels like the weight of the world is off my shoulders. You guys actually remember from back when I was still a regular on the show, the golf league.
Yes, of course.
And I was like, there's always just, it's a who's who there.
Yeah.
And I was playing someone like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, I recognize this guy so much. Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? It was Lauren Landau.
That just hit you right now?
That just hit me right now when we were talking about
there you go.
strength and conditioning and all of that.
Wow. Did you say congratulations on a runner-up to national champion?
Like I said, I had no idea it was him. Where's he at now?
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't him, but I just Googled this picture. I'm like, that was him for sure.
That is random
it's
as hell.
either
Did
that or a guy who looks
point it out
just
in the
like
chat, or
no,
what made it click?
It just clicked.
Wow.
It might, and I might be wrong, but I think I was right.
Yeah, but you've been around him for a long time, so that would make sense.
Yes.
Anyways,
Lauren Landau. Yeah, I mean,
another thing I was thinking of is just little insights on my brain. Colorado has always had the best Greenlaws.
Yes,
boy.
yes.
Wow.
We put out on DNVR _Broncos Twitter like an hour before Dre Greenlaw signed. He's considering the Broncos pitch him, and some people said like that exact same thing.
Greenlaws.
Yep. Broncos got the best of them. Did you guys see what DJ Jones tweeted yesterday after the Broncos signed Greenlaw?
Yeah.
You hear? Can you pull that up, because it clearly had something to do with Greenlaw, but I was confused and want you guys to help me understand this.
I mean, it's not that confusing.
All right.
Didn't he say like up law?
He said it's up law.
It's up law.
Law being Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah, that's his
It's
nickname.
up being like it's up.
Like let's go.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Oh, okay. See, I need your help. Thank you for let's go. Let's go, Law.
One of my
I think we handled it.
one of my old favorite podcasts that no longer exists used to have a show called, or a segment called Yes, Yes, No. And one person would bring a tweet that they don't understand, and then the other two would explain it to them. And that was the fastest episode of Yes, Yes, No ever.
That really was, yeah.
Dang, that was an OG reference of the show. Is the Yes, Yes, No? I remember you talking about that from that.
Also, I saw a picture somebody posted, and it looked like Hufanga and Greenlaw had lockers next to each other.
Yeah, at least in that picture, it looked like it.
Yeah,
for sure.
which is interesting. I'm not sure if that was like the game day locker or just like the actual practice facility locker.
It was definitely game day. Maybe it was also practice, but they were wearing like their full uniforms. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So maybe good friends. Maybe Hufanga recruited him over to Denver as well.
DJ said his locker was next to Nick Bosa back in the day. And he's like, yeah, that guy was like the coolest guy. It's like, oh, good to know.
What's the setup now? So when I first started covering the Broncos, it was offense on one side, defense on the other. Then they were like, we got to shake this up because the offense and defense was feuding for years.
It's still shaking.
It's offense. It's really offense and defense. When you walk into the locker room, on the right, it's the offensive line in the back. Then it's quarterbacks and receivers and running. It's
at the stadium.
And defense. Yeah.
I'm saying in the day-to-day.
In the day-to-day, it is shaken. With Bo very close to the door that is as far away from like where we come in as possible.
But it's also different than the last time you were there, I'm pretty sure, because remember in training camp how they had preseason, I guess, is when we were allowed in, how they had the lockers in the middle, and then during the regular season they brought them out. Well, now they have the lockers in there all the time, so it's pretty crowded. That's why on the Broncos NFLPA survey, I think they got an F for locker rooms or a D for locker rooms because it's just so small.
It is tiny.
So with the new facility, they're going to have big lockers.
They also used to have the Super Bowl trophies in there, and then Coobs had them taken out.
And Sean never put him back in. So one more thing really quick.
3 coaches since Coobs, too.
Yeah. Well, probably a good move to keep him out. One more thing really quick, because I've seen some comments on here when I went through, like, there's no weakness. People still point at Riley Moss and Alex Singleton. Alex Singleton is just a tackle machine. He is a plus linebacker in this league. In fact, I think that what we've learned over the past 48 hours, that he deserves a raise instead of, if anything, because $6 million is an absolute bargain for him right now. And then Riley Moss as well. He's getting a lot of heat. He had a really bad game against the Bengals that was coming back from injury. He admitted it. Everyone admitted it. And that's what people seem to only remember, that he was legitimately grading out as a true number 1 cornerback before he got injured. So stop with the hate on both of those guys.
Why is that?
Riley had a slow finish to the year. So he came back from the injury. There was that game against T. Higgins, and I think that's the one where people kind of turned on him.
But I mean, like, let's just say 70% of his games were good.
Oh, totally. And they absolutely were. Like, it is wrong to think that. Like, Riley had a great year. You know, it had like that arc to it where it was like, he's in the right spot, but he just can't make the play on the ball. He's just not quite breaking it up. And then a month into the season, he started making those plays. And that's when he was like, locked down, don't throw the ball his way. And then he got hurt. And then afterwards, like, for the most part, he was fine, but the T. Higgins game was bad. And then people just hate linebackers. Like, nobody thinks that their linebackers are good except for like a few teams. It's similar to offensive line in that way, where it's just like, all it takes is one missed tackle, or like you don't cover a tight end who runs a 4.4 once, and it's like, oh, this guy isn't any good. Like, it's just unrealistic standards, I think.
Yeah. The Riley one is more surprising to me, just because he's a really young player who basically was a rookie last year, just in terms of his first like real playing time on the field, and was really impressive most of the time. And I feel like he like somehow lost the benefit of the doubt based on one really bad game coming back from injury.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And also against the arguably the best quarterback in the NFL last year, his defense was just so bad that they didn't make the playoffs. And Joe Burrow, one of the best number 2 wide receivers in the NFL.
That's the whole point of the Bengals offense.
Yes.
They are going to put a number 1 receiver on your number 2 corner.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Exactly. And then get that mismatch with tight end as well with Gesicki. So I talked to some players in the Broncos locker room yesterday, and I think these are going to get you fired up. I want to tell you how they're feeling inside the Broncos locker room about Dre Greenlaw specifically, and I want to tell you that after I give a shout out to our friends over at Toyota, where it's the official vehicle of DNVR. And if you want a Toyota, there's so many stores across the Front Range to get you hooked up. And if you want just a car, which I think like 99% of us need, Toyota's got you covered with any sort of car. Toyotas are reliable. That's probably the number 1 thing you want with your car is reliability. You don't want to get in and it doesn't work and it's breaking down all the time.
Best ability is availability.
Oh, 100%. And that's certainly the thing with football players, but even more so with cars. You got to have a car ready for you 100% of the time. And that's one of the things that's amazing about Toyotas. They're durable. They last for generations. You hear the stories about Toyotas, like people getting their Toyota and with 300,000 miles or something like that. They last so long. And if you want to get a new or a used one, you can check them out over at one of your local Front Range Toyota stores: Auto Nation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, the official vehicle of DNVR. And of course, need to give a shout out to my favorite Toyota right now, that Land Cruiser. That's where I'd be hopping into to get my car, as I'd be going to a Land Cruiser. That's probably my next car. I'm going to upgrade to that. So check them out, Toyota, at one of those Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, let's go places.
And shout out to Raising Cane's. That's where I always go for my chicken fingers, and that's where you guys should go too, because they're the best. It's all they do, which I think is kind of underrated. Like, I feel like especially like the Midwest. In the Midwest, everybody's all about like we should be well-rounded and like have a bunch of different skill sets. Sometimes it's best just to pick one good thing and just get really good at that one thing.
If you think of like all of the best like regional foods or anything like that, like you go to like a great Philly cheesesteak place, they're not selling burgers.
Exactly. Don't waste your time. And I think it extends to people as well, where it's like Michael Jordan, great at basketball. Like, how is he at math? I don't care, because he shouldn't have been putting his time toward math. Get really good at basketball.
And we know he wasn't the best at owning an NBA team either.
Exactly.
So to your point, Henry.
Pick your lane, be good at it. And that's what Raising Cane's did.
The Michael Jordan of chicken fingers.
Yeah, the Michael Jordan of chicken fingers. That's what I always say. They have the Texas toast. They've got the crinkle cut fries, which come from grade A premium potatoes. Underrated part of it. I've actually been watching a bunch of Starch Madness, which is what they call the Big Sky Conference basketball tournament.
Oh, of course.
Played in Boise, Idaho.
Oh, because of
Starch
potatoes.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. Montana plays at 9:30 tonight, which is going to be a little bit late for me. But go to Raising Cane's. They've got all sorts of good stuff. I'm going to be grabbing some today because Lexi's out of town. I'm watching basketball. Get your box combo today. Make your craveable dreams a reality. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love.
So I asked the question to you guys about where's the weakness on this Broncos starting defense, and we didn't really find one. And so I asked a player in the Broncos locker room, like, in your opinion, a very honest player, where's the weakness in this Broncos starting defense? And they said nothing. We will be the best in the league. Dre Greenlaw is good AF.
Let's go.
And this is a straight
shooter. Do you
shooter.
need us to explain that for you?
No, I think I get that. Well, you can't explain it actually on this show.
You'd be surprised what I can get away with.
You getting away with this? And this comes no way. And I mean that's just so that's how they're viewing it too. Is we got the best defense in the NFL. That's what Sean Payton and George Payton are going all in on right now. Is the defense, and you might think like, oh, this is a little different for Sean to put all the chips on the defensive side. No, not the case at all. When you go and look at his 15 years with the Saints, they had a top defense all the time, like a top 5 defense all the time, because Sean wanted to give the defense a ton to work with because he knew he was going to be able to get the offense straight. And I think that's the exact approach that he's taking this year. Plus, they know that the defense was this close to being the best defense in the NFL last year. So let's just get it over the top. Let's get to that number 1 defense. And then on the offensive side, Sean has all the confidence in the world that he's going to be able to continue to develop Bo Nix right here.
As they say, defense wins championships.
They have said that.
Yep.
Also, just one more point on Riley Moss, because it was accidentally brought up in the chat, and I think it's actually a great call by. Someone said, don't forget he also got cooked by Jerry Jeudy.
I saw that one.
No, he did not.
That was Levi Wallace.
That was the moment of the season where it was so obvious how valuable Riley Moss was, because he went out and they did get cooked by Jerry Jeudy because it was Levi.
Up, what, 34 points in that game?
Yeah, that was a crazy, most entertaining Broncos game I've watched in a while.
Yes. Also, while we're talking to the chat, somebody said a linebacker having a bunch of tackles is not a good thing. I would beg to differ there. I would say that's actually the number 1 thing you want in a defense.
Well, especially
it's I think what they're trying to say is a linebacker having a lot of tackles doesn't automatically mean that they were great.
Yep.
And I think that's a fair point. But yes, you definitely want your linebacker to rack up tackles.
That is the number 1 on like the list of duties. Make the tackles.
Well, and especially, I mean, that's what you want your defensive line to do. That's why DJ Jones, someone brought it up as a negative toward him. Like, wow, the Broncos are playing DJ Jones $13 million, and he had less than 2 tackles per game. He's not really supposed to get tackles. That nose tackle is supposed to eat up blocks so that the linebacker can just tackle the guy right there.
Instead of getting blocked.
Exactly. Yes. So, yeah, those stats are actually exactly how defense is supposed to be made. Defensive linemen not supposed to be getting many tackles. Linebackers, they're the ones to get the tackles.
That's ball.
That's ball.
That is ball. So since those 2 free agent signings, let's just kind of reset where the Broncos stand right now, unless you guys have any final thoughts. Not final thoughts, but just thoughts for right now on Greenlaw or Hufanga. Those are the only moves the Broncos have made outside the organization. The Evan Engram watch is on right now. We found out from Mike Kliss that the Broncos wined and dined him. He was around him for about 24 hours, and he still got out the door without a contract right now. They brought him to Shanahan's Steakhouse Sunday night, brought him into the building on Monday.
They were really courting him.
They're really courting him.
So sorry to interrupt, Zach.
No.
So is the feeling, because when he left yesterday, my feeling was more this was a Broncos decision to not put a contract in front of him and get him to sign it before he left. Is now the feeling that he was always in like a you're going to have to recruit me mode, I'm going on my official visits type of thing?
That's a great question. What I found out was, in my feeling, not like a 100% report, but from talking to people, is that he left. The Broncos do want him, and the Broncos still want him, and there's still a chance that they can get him. So maybe it is like he wants to go test the market in other places, especially being a vet who's been around for a while. He probably doesn't feel desperate to sign somewhere, knowing he's the number one tight end on the board. Then there's a massive drop. When it's like that, you have the power. And so that's kind of where it stands right now.
Plus, who doesn't want a bunch of free steak dinners?
Exactly.
Also true. I also wouldn't be surprised if the offer just wasn't up to his standards. Like, he was hoping for more, but they say like the best tight ends in the NFL make like $16 million a year, and you've been hurt and all these other things. So my guess again would just be it's something financial, and he's going to shop around, and maybe the Broncos try to match it.
What's your number that you would go to for him?
I've wondered that a lot. I mean, there's 9 tight ends in the NFL making $12 million a year more, 11 at 10 or more.
Who's the 9th?
9th is Dalton Schultz.
Okay.
So I
mean,
you
kind of got to get there.
You're probably right in that range. But at the same time, the guy only played 9 games last year. 9 games, I think. So you could definitely justify it being a lower number. I mean, Gesicki signed a deal for $8.5 million a year.
Yeah, if I'm Evan Engram, I'm saying,
north of 10.
I did miss time last year, but also the year before I had 114 catches.
And that's the tough part. That's where you gotta find that middle ground between the two.
But he's a free agent, so he does hold the power here, at least initially on the surface. So we're all on Evan Engram watch, tight end watch right now. Broncos, a couple of other moves that were made with them this morning. Riley Dixon said peace. The Broncos offered him a contract, wanted him back, and he didn't want to be back, at least for the contract that they were offering. He's gone, now signed a 2-year, $6 million deal. So how about this? Let's pound the table for CSU legend Ryan Stonehouser. You're shaking your head, yes.
100%, yes.
Whoa, would have never thought I could get you to say that about CSU guy.
Hey, I'm about winning here.
And Ryan's.
Yes. Really good.
And Stonehouses, they're actually better in fires.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Probably really
what about
well built.
Floods? Probably better.
I don't know.
Floods? But depends like how's the grout.
Because like the wood, all the grout, but also like wood you wouldn't want to get all wet.
Anyways, the dude has the best leg in like NFL history.
Yep.
Yeah.
So why would you not want him?
Totally agree. Why would the Titans let him go? I guess the Titans are the worst team in the NFL, so maybe that's why they would let him go, is they don't know what they're doing.
And he's tendered?
He has not been tendered yet.
Okay.
I still think they can tender him. So there's a chance he's not a free agent, but man, that would be awesome to bring him in, especially in Mile High.
It feels too obvious.
It does, but it also felt too obvious.
Other teams who are trying to do this?
It felt too obvious to sign him as or draft him with like a 7th round pick in the draft, and they didn't do it then either. So Broncos now have a new coaching staff in special teams too, led by the Riz man, Darren Rizzi. So we'll see where he goes. Let's go around
real quick.
Yeah.
So the reason maybe Stonehouse isn't a great fit is because he does have like the cannon, obviously, but just looking at it real quick, he's like 20th in the league in punts inside the 20. He just can't control it. And so like going from Riley Dixon to Ryan Stonehouse would be just a total 180 because Dixon like has his flaws, and those are like the 36-yard punts, like the one against the Bengals when you're playing that entire first half in the defensive half of your field, and they're not settling for anything but a touchdown, and so they're just going at it, and you just can't push them back, so you're just waiting for them to inevitably score because you can't flip the field. On the other side, though, I mean, Riley Dixon was arguably the best in the NFL just looking at inside the 20 rate. And then on top of that, how many times did he just pin him at the 1? Yeah. Like, remember those safeties the Broncos were generating at the beginning of the season? Yeah. And like Tremon Smith gets credit for that too, but like it would be a big switch to go from like the placement guy to like, hey, if we've got a punt because we went 3 and out, like Stonehouse is your guy. If you're thinking like maybe we can not be bottom 5 in the league in 3 and outs this year, then maybe you would be more interested in like that Dixon placement guy. Obviously not him, he's off the board.
So what you're telling me is a 2-punter system.
Hey, I mean, if you're not using the special team spot on Tremon Smith, you could put it there.
There you go. That would be something. Really quick, before we move on to news and notes around the NFL, and we're going to catch you up tomorrow on exactly where the Broncos stand. If they make any moves, of course, we'll talk about that, dive into more of Evan Engram. But one more point I wanted to make when we were talking about, is this the best defense in the NFL? Where are the holes? How's it looking? I legitimately think the Broncos have the best secondary in the NFL when healthy. They have 2 first-team All-Pros, and one of those guys is the Defensive Player of the Year. Riley Moss, I believe, is still very much up and coming, and he was really good last year when he was healthy at the beginning, the first half of the season, really. And then Brandon Jones is a plus safety. That's insane. And then plus, you have Jaquan Milk, who's a plus nickel cornerback, slot guy, however you want to categorize that. That's the best secondary in the NFL. And then you pair that with the best pass rush in Broncos history, which is insane to say, because they had DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, Malik Jackson, Derek Wolfe,
Shane Ray.
Yes,
Shaq Barrett.
Yes. The depth was amazing too. And yes, that was a 16-game season. The Broncos broke the sack record for the franchise in 16 games last year. What they did in the 17th game was just gravy on top. So that is insane. And they didn't lose any of those pieces. In fact, you could easily make an argument that the Broncos pass rush, the combination of all those guys, is still trending up because Nick Bonito just started hitting his stride last year. Jonah Ellis, now your backup. He had 5 sacks last year, and he's trending up. Tillman as well. Young guys that are still getting better. Zach Allen may have not hit his ceiling either. So that's insane. When you pair the best pass rush in the NFL with the best secondary in the NFL, not to mention Dre Greenlaw and Alex Singleton at inside linebacker there.
It's, again, if it all comes together and everyone plays healthy, the Broncos are going to hold teams to single digits like several times next year.
That would be a lot of fun. Because, I mean, then you just need the offense to go out there. Like, those blowout wins are back in play, which it feels like the Broncos haven't had many of those because you need the defense and the offense playing really well in the same game. But that, I mean, I'm down for some blowouts. Well, take a nap in the fourth quarter, get Jarrett Stidham some reps.
What's crazy, though, is last year the Broncos, at least with a couple games left, had like the second most blowouts in the NFL in terms of like 10-plus wins.
Panthers and Saints?
No, wins.
Yeah, but so you beat the Panthers, you beat the Saints. What were the others?
Oh, they had like 7 double-digit wins with a couple of games left. Off the top of my head...
Browns probably ended up being double digits because of the late turnovers.
Yep. Raiders...
Yep.
Was they beat the crap out of the Buccaneers?
And
they did. Yep.
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
That was crazy.
When everything felt like it was falling from the sky.
Yeah.
One thing to just keep in mind too is we used to talk about it so much when the Broncos didn't have the quarterback. Once you get the young quarterback, this is your time to go for it.
Yep.
This is the window. And so you got to, spend a couple extra $1 million on a guy who you're not quite sure about. This is the time to do it and take your chances and roll the dice. And like, anytime you're going to win a championship, you need the stars to align for you. So if you're making a couple moves here and there where you're like, okay, well, hopefully the stars align here, like you have to make those moves to allow yourself to have the ceiling that can win you a championship.
Yeah, and pretty much every Super Bowl team has incredible injury luck. And so that's just what you're going to need. It doesn't matter if you signed Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga or not. The Broncos, this is crazy to say, outside of Peyton Manning in 2015, were very good on the injury front. They had pretty much all their guys. In 2013, it was the complete opposite. Yep. Somehow Peyton Manning was able to get that team to a Super Bowl.
No Von Miller, no Chris Harris, no Derek Wolfe.
Yeah, you can keep going down. Yep. It was insane. Like, they didn't have their starting offensive line outside of Manny Ramirez either. Ryan Clady was supposed to be in that game, and he got hurt at the beginning of the season. It was insane, and you need things to go the right way. I mean, I think you look at the Chiefs. Every time they've won the Super Bowl over the past decade, they've been like the least injured team in the NFL. It's not just Patrick Mahomes. They've had the stars align as well. So you're just going to need that. Any team is going to need that. I'm sure the Eagles this past year, just off the top of my head, I think they were pretty darn healthy too.
Yes.
They had everyone.
Very healthy, especially at the very end.
Yeah, and you know who wasn't? The Chiefs. They were without a couple guys on their offensive line and came to bite them. at the very end right there.
Now they're permanently without those guys.
Yes, they're overpaying offensive linemen to sign with them in free agency to try to fix that offensive line. Really quick, let's look around and see what's going on with the rest of the NFL. Guys, Daniel Jones gets $17 million. I think like $14 million guaranteed, $17 million. And when I saw that news come down this morning, God bless Bo Nix, as Tony Scheffler would say. Like, thank goodness. And it's not like we don't know how that feels. We've been in the Joe Flacco market. Broncos have been in the Case Keenum market. And I'm just so happy we don't have to sell ourselves, let alone other people, but ourselves on just like false hope. What the hell are we doing here?
Yeah. Justin Fields got $20 million a year.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yes.
And like people are talking like he's just a starter now. Like
that is,
I can't remember who said it, but there was like a big NFL personality who was like, now that Justin Fields is the starter in New York, it's like, oh my God.
Yikes.
Yep. Good luck, Darren Muji up there.
Well, and I've always been, I think, higher on Justin Fields than the average person, but he certainly hasn't shown anything recently to just be like, okay, let's pay him to be our starter right now.
Yeah. Again, like he was backing up Russell Wilson. That kind of speaks for itself.
Yes.
It's like even if you're like high on Russell Wilson, it's like, you know what? He's close to league average in bad situations, whatever. Like still, that's not, you don't pay his backup $20 million a year.
No, and it's crazy. Last year, Sam Darnold got 10, and it was like, whoa, that's a lot. Now Daniel Jones gets 17 for like I guess maybe a slightly different role, but kind of similar. He's going to compete with Anthony Richardson now. And I saw a report come from Anthony Richardson's agent who said, Anthony Richardson's not going to demand a trade. He's ready to compete. I'm like, are you kidding? Of course he's not going to demand it. He has no value right now.
Yeah.
He's bad.
He has been bad. He also has done some really cool things.
He's also done some very uncool things.
Yes. If I'm a Colts fan, like, I don't want to see Daniel Jones on the field ever.
Yeah.
But as a coach,
absolutely,
if your job is on the line, because that coach is going into year 3 right now, so like that's kind of when things get hot. Who are you trusting?
We're literally, this is us going back to the Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater thing. We're like, Vic Fangio has to start Teddy Bridgewater to save his job.
But it's more
like what a terrible, terrible place to be in.
It's more like Drew Lock though, because it's not it's not like Daniel Jones is steady. Like the guy threw 3 picks.
True.
I think he threw 3 pick sixes in a preseason game last year.
It's like the more exciting younger guy versus the less exciting veteran.
Yeah. Who's just as bad.
Oh my! Shout out to Bo.
At least Teddy did have like the reputation of like, okay, he's gonna come in and manage the game well.
Yeah.
And he did. He had the best season for a Bronco since Peyton Manning in 2014.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, Bo Nix has taken that to the next level. We don't have to worry about that. But, I mean, you see it.
Feels good, man.
The Jets are in a tough spot. The Colts are in a very tough spot. What do you guys think about the Seahawks giving Sam Darnold 3 years, $100.5 million deal?
It's literally insane. And the Broncos might have still won the Russell Wilson trade.
Really?
I mean, what did they do with all of those assets?
They got Charles Cross.
And the corner. Why can't I think of his name? So Witherspoon?
Tariq Woolen?
No, Woolen was later in the draft.
Oh.
No, the other
Devin
top
Witherspoon?
5 pick. Yeah.
Oh, he was good.
Yeah.
Okay, he actually is good. But, I mean,
they didn't
the Broncos
where they
ended
go.
up getting Bo Nix out of it.
They did.
When you put it like that, that's a really good point.
I wonder who
And
could
Sean
they have
Payton.
drafted that year?
Yeah.
Who was the first quarterback taken after Charles Cross? That's tough to remember.
Well, wasn't
that the Pickett year or no?
That was the Charles Cross was 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
No.
That would
It was the year before Bo Nix.
It would have been
So who
the
went in
first
that
year
draft?
of Russ. So that would have been the 2022 draft.
Oh, because it was the first year. Right. That's when the Broncos were watching Russell Wilson highlights in the first round of the draft.
Yeah.
I think that was
cute.
the Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett
Was it?
year.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
All
So
good
you could
there.
add Kenny Pickett.
Yep. No. Which he was just traded to the Seahawks, right?
No. Eagles to...
Oh, it was in the Steelers division.
Browns.
It was the Browns. They got DTR back.
Speaking of awful quarterback spots to be in, as of right now, the Browns are in a spot. Do you think they go for Shedeur? That's what it seems like mock drafts are saying.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. But right now they've got Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Is Russell Wilson still without a team?
Russell Wilson is still without a team. It seems like his only opportunity right now is the Giants.
Would you rather have Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers?
Oh my God, Russ.
Really?
I think Russ. If are you talking about if you're the Steelers?
I think just in a vacuum, like
I think
one of these teams, like who do you take?
I think Russ cares about winning more than anything else, and I just don't think I can say that about Aaron Rodgers.
What about Russ to the Vikings QB competition with JJ McCarthy?
Would not do that at all. I would not bring Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson to that room at all.
I wouldn't bring either of those guys to any place where I have like a young up and coming quarterback.
I wouldn't bring either of those guys anywhere. Honestly, like nowhere. Here's oh my gosh. No, because I guess Anthony. No.
Okay.
I wouldn't. Here's why I would also choose Russ over Aaron Rodgers. Russ would not miss a mandatory minicamp.
That's what I mean.
That is one thing. Russ is committed to it.
Yeah.
In his own way.
And his distractions are better distractions.
Right.
Yeah. It's just like, why are you posting this video of you throwing these footballs? Like, it's a lot better than like, oh no, our quarterback's on drugs in South America. Like,
What's
which
crazy
is the worst distraction.
That's a reality there.
No, that's just one that already happened.
And he's not.
Oh my God.
We haven't heard from him in weeks.
We got tons of super chats here.
Good.
Let's get them. Former rebuild this team. There we go. We told you last week you might want to change that from rebuild this team, and you did. Formerly rebuild this team says we now have the seams and the middle of the field covered and are much stronger in the box. This is going to be a top 3 defense for sure. I say don't be shy about it. Just say top defense in the NFL. They were a top 3 defense last year.
It's going to be crazy when the Broncos are dominating on defense last year to think about the Vance Joseph arc.
Oh, yeah.
What an arc.
When he's getting head coaching interviews and getting a head coaching job.
Yeah, I mean, and just even from the 70-point game to number 1 defense in the NFL, which is where I think they'll be.
I said they should fire
crazy.
him. I was wrong.
Almost everyone did.
Everyone
did.
but Todd.
Yeah,
Todd stood by him.
it's true.
Once again,
it
Todd
really
was right.
worked for him.
Yeah. No, we had this talk a couple weeks ago where I thought they were like statistically like top 3 across the board, pretty easily one of the 3 best defenses, but you just expect regression. Like there's so much randomness that happens throughout the season. Like to be statistically a top 3 defense again, the odds are against it. And then you go and like sign these 2 guys and it's like, oh, well, that's how you avoid that regression is just by adding more talent. So you absolutely should be one of the 3 best defenses.
Yep.
How long do we have to wait to find out what numbers these guys are wearing?
A while.
Number 1 is available. I wanted to ask you, who should wear number 1?
Just between the 2 new guys or anyone?
No,
Anybody.
Tess Johnson.
Tez Johnson.
Tez.
Make him look
They're
quick
not
as
on the
how.
team yet.
Would Genty look? Oh, he's not on the team. Would Genty look good number 1?
No.
I feel like I agree. He's a 2 number guy.
Yeah.
21's electric.
No, he wore 2 in college and it looked good on him.
2
true.
did look good. 1 just looks narrow on him.
One has to be like a taller guy.
So it couldn't be.
Or like lankier, I should say.
It couldn't be. Why can't I think of his name right now?
Dre Greenlaw? Talanoa Hufanga?
No.
Tyler Ward?
Troy Franklin. It couldn't be Troy Franklin.
It could be Troy Franklin.
It could be.
Or it could be
That
Ryan
might be
Stonehouse.
exactly what he needs.
Or Devon Vele. Evan Engram takes his 17 from him and he gets 1. He's a tall guy.
I know,
You said
it
gotta
just
be tall,
doesn't-
lanky
doesn't
He
guy.
doesn't
fit
play like a number 1.
Okay. Well, then it's got to be Troy Franklin. He plays like a number 1.
It's going to be
It's going to be a punter.
I honestly, yeah.
Chase
Stonehouse.
Nealon.
Chase Nealon was a beast.
Just, I don't know, give me an electric offensive player and give him number 1. He'll have a really great chance of succeeding.
I think that's how you fix Troy Franklin.
Honestly, it worked for Nick Bonito.
It did. I mean, that's
That's a really good
that's
point.
exactly what he needs is a change to wearing
Which,
number 1.
by the way, I said from the second that we found out Nick Bonito was wearing 42, I was like,
Yeah.
this simply won't do.
And
This
then
is
what
not gonna
happened the
work.
second he got number 15?
Boom.
It's a long snapper number. You can't be wearing a long snapper number as your dominant pass rusher.
Exactly. All right.
Wait, Marvin Mims. If he changes to 1,
that
is
works.
Is he like elite now?
Yes, but didn't
he already has a
Deebo
change.
Samuel go from 19 to 1 and it ruined his career?
It did.
Yeah.
He was wide though. Like you look at him, he looks fat when he wears number 1.
It's
like,
true.
and that's honestly like when I was going back and watching old Deebo highlights and comparing him to new, I struggled with like, did he actually just gain a lot of weight, or does he just look fat in that number? And I decided he did gain weight.
Yeah, I think it's number 2 right there. Okay, we're going to go into overtime to hit these Super Chats. Go to thednvr.com if you want to join us for these Super Chats. We really appreciate you guys for tuning in with us, even in overtime. And let's hit these other Super Chats. Formerly Rebuild This Team again says, you know how you hear announcers say that defender is all over the field? We just added 2 of them.
Yep.
Very true. Great point. Love that. Russell Smith says, Zach, any news on Engram? And do you think that they could still sign Juszczyk? And I think we could go 15-2 and win the Super Bowl easily. I love that. Let's talk about Juszczyk tomorrow because he is a fascinating one. The Broncos are already making the San Francisco Broncos. Might as well just add another Pro Bowler in Kyle Juszczyk. And Engram, we kind of talked about it. My understanding is that the Broncos still are interested in him and are still in the mix on him, which is key. So just because he left the building, it's not a great sign that he leaves the building without a contract, but it doesn't mean that it's totally over right there.
I think if you get Engram, you get Cooper Kupp, you go get Genty, trade up for Genty, I think 15-2 might be on the table. I think that's kind of your path there. Dang. And then obviously the defense plays lights out and the offense takes a step.
And you get Juszczyk and you're 16-1?
Maybe. Again, I've always been a Juszczyk fan. I haven't watched him for a bit. The fact the 49ers are cutting him scares me a bit. Same age as Michael Burton, though, so I'll watch tonight.
We'll talk about it tomorrow, but I think that was a big thing just with money. Like, you're paying a fullback how much money?
Okay.
No, sorry, not anymore. Shiloh says, gonna miss Todd, but happy he's still a Bronco.
Amen.
Yeah.
It truly was the best place to lose a coworker is by going and working for the team you're covering.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
yes.
it is.
He's really following the JJ Redick path.
Yeah, he really is.
Wow.
The next JJ. We should get them in touch.
We should.
Yeah.
JJ's got LeBron. Todd's got Bo.
Bang.
Wow. Mr.
Yeah.
Punk 180 says, first time listening live. Great show. Listen on night shifts. Are there any news on tight ends, punter or running back for free agency? What number on jerseys to buy now? Well, that's a question Ryan just asked. I do think it's going to be a couple of weeks, if I remember right. They
what about
slow
don't
play
they
this.
have a jersey when they do their introductory press conference?
Oh, introductory press conferences don't happen with Sean Payton.
Sean doesn't believe it.
No.
Not even Zooms, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, no. In fact, last year, I think I mentioned this last week, I had Brandon Jones lined up to come on our show, reached out to some back channels to get him on, nothing through the Broncos because I knew that would have been shut down. He goes, signs his contract with the Broncos. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go talk with the guys on DNVR. And they're like, no, you're not.
Yep.
So they shut that down. I got a message from his team being like, so like they really don't want anyone to talk. I'm like, no.
My favorite is 2 years ago when they had the big signing and the poor guy went to go buy a nice suit for his introductory press conference and then turns out they don't do those.
Who was it?
It was one of the linemen. I can't remember which one in particular.
Those would be big suits.
Big suits, yes.
Yeah.
Expensive suits, a lot of material.
Yes.
My guess is that was probably McGlinchey. He's definitely the more
outgoing. Do you have any
type.
insight as to why?
He doesn't want people talking. Okay, we got to continue. According to our producer, here. Rashawn says, sign Engram, trade up for Genty, trade a 6th or 7th round pick for Cooper Kupp. Well, the good news is with Kupp, you don't have to trade anything. You can just pick him up when he's cut tomorrow. Let's talk about Cooper Kupp later this week as well. And let's do it with a former Broncos receiver. That's a little tease for later in the week. And the final one, Broncos Slick Lakers. Interesting. Slick says Warren Slip, Egbuka, Golden, if we get Engram or Juwan Johnson. So he just wants to load up on the offense in the first round in the draft.
No, I mean, Matthew Golden could be like incredible. Egbuka honestly could be incredible too. He's just so good at so many different things that people kind of get bored of it.
Are either of those guys big enough for Sean Payton to draft?
Egbuka would be the He's 6'1", 205.
Okay.
210 maybe.
Sean likes his wide receiver room. I don't think he wants a first-round pick on him.
Yeah. I like it, too. I also would like Emeka Egbuka.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Well, let's continue this conversation. Talk about all the other free agency moves the Broncos haven't made, what they can make. We'll talk about Cooper Kupp. We'll also talk about where things stand with Evan Engram. If they don't sign anyone, if they sign someone, we're going to be live. So make sure to stay tuned to this YouTube channel where we did 2 emergency shows yesterday. Shout out to Ryan, shout out to Henry, shout out to you here, and shout out to everyone tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow, DNVR Broncos Podcast, 11 a.m.
We all silly like the mayor.